about to join Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an Intel Analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Neuen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Neuen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You are now in Don Neuen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Hello.
Good evening, Denise Simon. It's your buddy Don Neuen.
Hi, Don Neuen. How are you?
I am doing grand, Denise. Let me start off by wishing you and all of our beloved listeners a very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Denise. Isn't it fun to do that every week?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, the only thing that I can think that would be better than this is like if I every weeknight that we do the sit rep, that I wore like a green and red sweater.
Oh, okay. Little,
but,
Santa elf shoes right and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I got the boots on, but at any rate, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Drive Time Sit Rep with Denise Simon. My name's Don Neuen. In a couple of minutes, in the immortal words of Chris Cuomo, we're going to get after it, and we're going to talk about all kinds of fascinating stuff that Denise has been digging around on since the last time that we were with her. In the meantime, though, hang on, Denise, I'm all hung up in my reading glasses. In the meantime, Denise is going to timestamp the show. Why is she going to do that? So that you guys can have some kind of a reference on when you're getting this information, because there's a good chance that there's going to be a few nuggets that Denise Simon just lets loose with tonight. It's going to be kind of cutting edge. Denise, I don't know what the deal here is. Let me put my reading glasses on, because I keep getting them hung up in my little earpieces. All right, so Denise, let's timestamp the show. Merry Christmas to you again. Okay. And what do you say, Chris Cuomo? We just get after it.
It's 8:34 p.m. on the 16th of September in the year of our Lord 2019.
You do that so well. Who coached you with all of that?
You did.
I did indeed. All right, so Denise, what are you able to help us all out with?
Well, I'm going to start off let me start off in left field real fast, because this is something that's been bugging me for a while, and we hear all this.
Wait a minute. Before you do that, and that's fine. You can go to left field, and we can come in, from there. But you will update us on what's going on with Saudi Arabia, right?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So now we're out in left field. Manny Ramirez stands out in left field, former player for the Boston Red Sox that Donna and I simply adore. And he's sitting there listening to his iPad or his iPod, playing ball, making drastic catches that really aren't that drastic and dramatic. That's where I go when you say left field.
Purdue Pharma.
Come on, wait a minute. At least laugh. Oh wow, that was fake.
Okay, no, seriously.
Okay.
We're tarring and feathering this Sackler family, this Sackler dynasty that is responsible for what they're saying is to be estimated 400,000 deaths because of overdoses to OxyContin. Okay. I'll buy that. I mean, if 400,000 people in whatever time frame that number came from, I don't know. But if that's the number, all right. But here's something that's interesting.
Yeah, but wasn't it their choice? Didn't they make choices?
Well, here's where I'm kind of going with that. In 2007, which takes us back 12 years, the Sackler family paid out one of the largest fines ever levied against a pharmaceutical company because they say it mislabeled its product OxyContin. And 3 of their executives were found guilty of criminal charges in 2007. Okay? Now, in 12 years' time, why are we talking about Purdue Pharma still and OxyContin? Therein lies the question. So we're finding out that the family, they're worth billions and billions, and they were hiding money or moving money into Swiss bank accounts. And, they go to Swiss bank accounts. No, they're not supposed to reveal anything, blah, 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 blah. But they've already been fined. Now let's go a little bit further. In 12 years' time, since there was an investigation that led up to what happened in 2007, that they found the 3 executives of the company guilty of criminal charges. So it had been investigated for some number of years prior to 2007. And in the 12 years since, we've had what? You got the Center for Disease Control. You've got the U.S. Surgeon General. You got the FDA. Why aren't some of these government entities in trouble? Why didn't we tell Purdue, don't make any more OxyContin? I mean, something's just very wrong with. I'm not trying to defend the family or this Purdue Pharma. I'm not, it's a privately held pharmaceutical company. I guess I'm just saying something else is very wrong here. Don't you think so?
I do. Although I do have an angle that I know that you're aware of. You haven't touched on it because you're moving in here from left field doing this. But I have a problem with holding a drug company financially liable for the deaths of people that are taking an FDA-approved drug, being administered to it normally by a doctor, or these folks are getting it out on the street, they're abusing it, they die from it. It's tragic that we're losing lives to drug use. But the bottom line is these people they're making choices to take this drug. Do you not agree?
Well, there are some people that are in a level of pain that we will probably never know. And, they take OxyContin just to be able to endure. They're not overdosing on it. It just gets them through life. Okay.
Sure.
So we have that component. But I would say when doctors, when the FDA or whoever, levied the charges and the fine and everything else against Purdue Pharma going back to 2007, doesn't that put all these doctors, these hospitals, the American Medical Association, doesn't put them on notice to say, hey, whoa. But now they're saying, well, Purdue Pharma lobbied and they lobbied the FDA. Well, then, is the FDA that feeble that they, were cool with it? Something is just very wrong with this whole case. I mean,
sounds like it.
Yes. Again, I'm not defending the family, but there's other culprits in this.
Well, if the family has done anything illegal, they should be held accountable for that. You and I agree on that on almost every possible scenario. But I want to go back to these deaths because, about 12 weeks ago, I had to go in for an oral surgery.
Mm-hmm.
They put me under with frickin' fentanyl, which, first of all, I didn't know unless I would have, maybe I read some small print someplace and didn't realize it, but they use fentanyl. Now, it's the first time I've ever been put under with fentanyl. I've only been under 3 times in my whole life. I came out of that, and I don't remember the 24 hours that followed it. Whatever it did, it worked. It worked very well because I felt no pain whatsoever after what would be normally a painful oral surgery. Now, they also prescribed to me Oxy for about I don't know, 10 days use or something like that I could take if after the fentanyl wore off, I was in pain. Now, I didn't take any of them. No, I take that back. I took one of them the night after, the night of the surgery, so that I could sleep through the night. The remaining, whatever it was, 9 or 19 or however many pills were in that bottle, I threw them away. I didn't take. Why did I throw them away? Because first of all, they're opiates. Why do I want to have them in the house? Secondly, I felt like it was the responsible thing to do. I wasn't in pain. I didn't need them. So I flushed them down the toilet. They're in a leaching field right now at the farm. My point, again, is that if you're going to go after this family for something that they've done illegally, fine. If you find them guilty, I'm all for it. But if people are going after this family for the deaths of 400,000 plus people, I got a problem with that. These people are willingly putting these drugs into their system.
And yet you do have some doctors that are going the other way, and they won't even give you so much as, codeine for pain. Now it's like, here, taking a leave, and we'll see you later.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to bring that up because I was poking around here today, and the FDA was warning Purdue Pharma over their ads going back to 2003. So this is not a new case. This is not a new situation. They're calling it, the Sacklers dynasty of ruthless marketing of painkillers has generated billions of dollars and millions of addicts. Okay, well, again, where was the American Medical Association? Where was the Harvard whatever medical blah blah blah? The Surgeon General, something else is just very, very wrong here. And notice that the government is not taking any responsibility on any of this.
Of course not. All right. Well, I'm sure you'll keep us posted on what happens with all of that.
Now let's move on over to the New York Times, shall we? And this recent thing that they did in the Sunday editorial section or comment section or whatever heck section they had, which is a well-read in the Sunday edition of the New York Times, where they decided to go after yet Brett Kavanaugh again.
Yep.
Well, I started to poke around today, and this thing came from a fellow by the name of Max Stier. Well, Max Stier was he was part of the Bill Clinton legal team, all things impeachment. And at the time, Brett Kavanaugh was on the Kenneth Starr team. So already, Max Stier, I think, doesn't like Brett Kavanaugh. But later on, interestingly enough, little Mr. Max Stier, I happened to find this today. Let's see if there's a date on it. Yes, August the 16th of 2016. The title of it is Partnership for Public Service Statement on Clinton Transition Team Announcement. So she was already announcing, had already named her transition team as she was to become president. But who issued the statement? Oh, glad you asked. Because the Partnership for Public Service President and CEO, Max Stier, released the following statement on Hillary Clinton's announcing the leaders of her transition team today. And there's some pretty interesting people in here. They include Interior Secretary Ken Salazar, Tom Donilon, the former National Security Advisor to Barack Obama, former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm, Neera Tandine, the president for Center for American Progress, Maggie Williams, the director of Harvard's Institutes of Politics. Those were the people that were leading the transition team. Now, managing the federal government is large and complex and is encouraging the presidential candidate preparing to govern even while they're vigorously campaigning. Senator Clinton's commitment to establishing the Clinton-Kaine Transition Project signals that she understands the enormous responsibility of a president assumes one day when blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it seems like Mr. Max Stier decided to keep going after Brett Kavanaugh. Well, it was Molly Hemingway who actually uncovered a little bit of this stuff over the weekend. And apparently this comment section of the New York Times going through yet another allegation that turned out to not be an allegation at all, but a mere part of a text of a book that didn't include all the text of the book, was actually referring to another time where there was a alleged sexual predator event by Brett Kavanaugh, and the woman said they never asked the woman. The New York Times, this Max Stier never asked the woman, and it didn't happen. So we continue after all of this to want to destroy a man who is already sitting on the Supreme Court, and which, by the way, Senator Mazie Hirono, the one that said, for men just need to shut up and act, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, half of these Democrats, they all said that Brett Kavanaugh needs to be impeached. So they've already declared him guilty, no due process. And I would argue that most of those people are lawyers. Kamala Harris is a prosecutor. So,
well, do you expect anything less out of it?
Well, do you ever just kind of sit back here and just, watch these people? And, these, especially those that are lawyers, and they don't go from the presumed innocent until proven guilty? I mean, it's an outrage. It's absolutely an outrage.
Of course. And the thing is, we've seen it for 2.5 years, 3 years. We've seen this kind of behavior out of the left. They don't care. They don't care about justice. They don't care about the presumption of innocence. They don't care about anything.
Well, I'm at this point where I'm not too sure I know what you could necessarily do to the New York Times here, but I can't think of any kind of journalistic malpractice that's as bad as this one that happened over the weekend. And there were some tweets. They just said that this was, just kind of good fun, and they retracted. But how many people even saw the retraction?
Of course. Well, Trump has allegedly, and you could probably confirm this, suggested that Kavanaugh sue. Which
I don't think he will. I think he's but on the other hand, this guy's got 2 daughters, and once this stuff is out there, it's out there forever.
That's
right. And I don't know that you can sue. I mean, you can sue, but I don't know that you'd ever prevail. Just like was happening with our little Mr. Sandman. After that whole event, which occurred during the Kavanaugh hearings.
Correct.
I hardly know what to say about it anymore.
Well, it's just pathetic, but it's become the normal behavior of the left. And again, I'm going to take this opportunity to reiterate a comment that I am beating every week like a dadgum drum. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, if you know anybody that is about to vote or considering voting for a member of the Democrat Party, they own all this stuff, and you got to let them know that. Just, if nothing else, hold your friends and family accountable for the decisions they make in the voting booth. If they vote for any member of the Democrat Party, local, state, federal level, they own this sick behavior, this unlawful behavior, this behavior that absolutely lacks any integrity whatsoever. It's twisted. And if we've got any listeners that are sitting on the fence, I'm pointing at you. You vote Democrat, you own this stuff. You own this sick, twisted, bizarre, un-American, unrecognizable crap that the liberals are shoving down our throats on a daily basis, and the mainstream media is absolutely fomenting. All right, enough of my rant there.
Well, I interview an awful lot of people inside Washington, D.C. On my radio show. And I sit out here, and I kind of fold my arms and I kind of watch this stuff. And then I go, I can't stand it. So I'll tell you if I can't contact somebody and say, well, you do a radio interview. Yes. And I guess the question is, we're not as close to it as they are. There are a bunch of good people over at Heritage, some over at the Cato, some at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and, the American Enterprise. I mean, there's a bunch of them, the Federalists and whatnot. And Don, I think you'd have to almost take some Oxycontin just to get through a day inside the Beltway, wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't want to have anything to do with it. I would not. It's an absolute cesspool.
I don't know how these people really deal with it.
Well, I think, quite honestly, a lot of them probably just tune it out, accept it as being the norm, and they live in their little bubbles. And I'm not slamming these people that you're talking about, but they live in their little bubbles, in their cubicles. They go home to their families, and they turn it off. And then they go back the next day and quite frankly, live in the lie. They don't live the lie. They live within the lie.
Even, the people, people outside of government that, are kind of government watchdogs, I have some real sympathy for them. People inside government that are some good guys, and there are some good ones, the Jim Jordans and, those that have the staying power. God bless them all. I can understand why people are going, I'm not doing this anymore. The Trey Gowdies or, these other ones that have just decided I'm not running anymore. Forget it. I understand it. I mean, because the fight is too big. I mean, there's no winning. And I mean, we all lose.
Well, the thing about it, Denise, is just think how different things would be if the media actually became journalists. Reported truth. Can you imagine how different things would be? I mean, think about this, Denise. When you're talking about, you don't know how these people that are inside the Beltway can tolerate this. Can you imagine what it must be like to sit in a House of Representatives chambers with the kind of people like Jerry Nadler and the people that are in that room with them? Can you imagine what it must be like for any of the people that are in Congress that have any degree of integrity and morals to sit in a room and put up with the crap?
Yeah, like Congressman Doug Collins.
Take any of them, for example.
I don't know how he doesn't just blow a cork, or Matt Gaetz or Jim Jordan or
exactly any of the guys that sat there and did a stellar, and women that sat there and did a stellar job with the Robert Mueller testimony. Any of those people that we saw on there, how do they do it? All right, we got to go to a break, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Drive Time Sit Rep. You got Denise Simon on one end of this confab. My name is Don Neuen. We're going to be back in about 2 minutes, and when we get back, I'm hoping Denise is going to take us over to Saudi Arabia and make some sense of a very complex part of the world. You're listening to the Drive Time Sit Rep.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Welcome back to the Drive Time Sit Rep, ladies and gentlemen. I am cascading down Interstate 20, headed west. On my way home, talking to you lovely people as we have a conference call with the ever-stellar Denise Simon, and we call that conference call the Drive Time Sit Rep. Welcome back. All right, Denise, please help us make some sense of what's going on over in Saudi Arabia.
Well, the first report is that the Houthis, which are based out of Yemen, had launched 10 drones and struck 19 targets, hitting 2 oil fields, Aramco oil fields, which is a joint U.S.-Saudi Arabia operation going back to the 1930s, I think, back when it was Standard Oil. And nobody's believing it was the Houthis. Everybody thinks it was Iran. Well, on the other hand, the Houthis are, in fact, an Iranian militia. And I happen to be with Secretary Mike Pompeo on this one. It was not the Houthis. It was Iran. And I'm not sure that it was drones at all. I believe that these were short-range missiles. Now, the big question is, where was the launch pad? Well, there's some thought that we're being told out here. I know that government officials, military officials, State Department, whatnot, they know the truth. But they came from Iran, or they came from some territory between Iran and Iraq. But someone's trying to give Iraq some relief and saying, well, it didn't really come from Iraq. But anyway, it wasn't the Houthis. And even if it was the Houthis, the drones would have still come from Iran. So now what do we do? Because this affected a very large amount of oil production of Saudi Arabia. We believe that they were able to, within 24 to 40 hours of this strike, of these 19 targets, that they were able to minimize as much as they could the damage, the fires and whatnot. And that's not all back online. They just stopped the fires. But now what do we do? Now we have the opinions on this were really kind of all over the place. We got Tulsi Gabbard that has already said that Donald Trump is Saudi Arabia's BITCH.
Yeah,
and
don't say it.
And that we have no business supporting Saudi Arabia in any of this. We've got a whole bunch of members of Congress that are mad at the Trump administration for supporting the Saudis anyway because of the war that they are having with the Houthis in Yemen, and we should get out of Yemen and we should stop supporting Saudi because there's such a humanitarian crisis going on over there. Well, Saudi Arabia didn't start it. Iran started it. Now, the bigger question is, what shall we do? Now, I would say it's clearly it was an act of war. I mean, that's beyond denial. That it is an act of war. But I guess I have to wonder, where was Saudi's air defense systems? Previously, they'd been able to stop a couple of those hits. Others, they had not. A couple of them got through and did some minor damage. You know, they hit the airports and whatnot. So I'm a little curious on, going back to 2017, remember when Trump went over to Saudi Arabia and he helped them open up this very expensive, elite, fancy counter-terrorism, anti-terrorism, anti-extremism center, intelligence center. And at the same time, the Saudis signed a $110 billion arms deal with the United States.
Right.
Okay, good. But does Saudi Arabia know what to do with any of this stuff? Because it seems to me, I don't think they do. Saudi Arabia can't do anything without us. And that includes, radar systems, that includes fighter jets, that includes tanks, that includes, whatever.
Well, it sounds like the rest of the world, Denise.
Precisely. And a fascinating thing is one of the things that Saudi Arabia bought was a THAAD missile system, which is a missile defense system. And that was to help them modernize. And then we also sold to them a cyber defense and airborne intelligence gathering system. So...
let me ask you this: where is it sitting, in a warehouse with all the DVD players that we bought them 35 years ago?
I have no idea, but something's very wrong here. We've got some military bases in Saudi Arabia. In fact, when this whole war broke out with the Houthis and Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in Yemen. We had a CIA operation there, and we had the CIA people. Remember that? They were all stuck, and they said, the Obama State Department said, you get out the best way you can. Well, China was helping them get out, and all the other people. And where did they all go? They went to Saudi Arabia. So we've got a very large footprint in Saudi Arabia, Miss Tulsi Gabbard. So now the question is, what shall we do? Well, it wasn't too long ago that Iran shot down our drone, and Trump had, planes on launch, almost wheels up, that he was going to go straight some targets until such time he pulled the plug on that one. Why he ever did that, I don't know. And then we continue to have, the Houthis continue to do some kind of, minor drone strike. But this one that happened at the 2 oil fields in Saudi Arabia over the weekend is a big, big, big deal. Not because we want to protect Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia is also helping a lot of other countries, allied countries, I might say, keep them in oil so they can, heat their houses and whatever else it is that Europe does. Do we have a response? I think we do. And shame on us if we don't go along with the Emiratis, the Oman, the Kuwaitis, Saudi, Israel, and there has to be a response. If not, how many times does Iran do things like this that they get away with? Now, having said all that, there will be some wide consequences. So you'd have to go to a full-blown war plan, because I would think that Iran would unleash the Houthis. They would unleash Hezbollah. Things would really go sideways in Lebanon. They would really go sideways for Israel. They would really go sideways for, say, Turkey in Syria. They would really go sideways in Afghanistan. I mean, things can go sideways real fast. So a war plan would have to be very comprehensive. It would almost have to be almost like General, what's his name? His name escapes me, in the first Gulf War.
Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzkopf.
Schwarzkopf.
Right. It would have to be that big.
Hey, hold on a second. You know what's sick about that? I saw in my mind as I'm driving down I-20 here, Schwarzkopf's face, okay, in the image in my mind. And the minute I started with Schwartz, all of a sudden that mental image of Schwarzkopf switched to Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
It was bizarre how that happened.
Okay, good to know.
Now you know the backstory. See, you always say there's more to the story. And there was more to that story.
Yes,
because I can
sounds
see him,
like it.
I can see him in his sand-colored uniform, and then all of a sudden, here is frickin' Arnold Schwarzenegger in a suit and tie. And then it came out of my mouth. It was bizarre, Denise. Bizarre. It was like a Jerry Nadler moment.
Did you have any OxyContin? Never mind.
No, I don't. It's in my leaching field.
But I believe if we do have some kind of a war plan, it would have to be on the scale. where it would be over with in 100 days. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's deal with Iran once and for all. I mean, every single problem that we seem to have really in the Middle East all goes back to Iran, every bit of it. Iraq, with all of the Iranian militia that are in Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. See what I'm saying?
No doubt that they're the bad players. They are the bad players.
I'm not a war hawk here, but really? I mean, how many do we allow them to go hit some other oil fields?
Well, wasn't there another vessel in the Strait of Hormuz that was seized this weekend?
If there was, I missed it.
I believe I read that someplace, and it would have been this weekend, or I'd have forgotten about it by now.
Well, we have some issues here, and I think that there really needs to be a war summit, a response summit, to deal with Iran once and for all.
Well, wouldn't it be nice if it was happening, if those summits were taking place, and they were actually taking place covertly, like you and I have talked about many times, to where the United States doesn't need to tip their hand and there's things we don't need to know about until after they happen? Wouldn't it be nice if that was going on, if Pompeo and Trump were having these types of meetings, which I can't imagine they are not. And,
Trump tonight's in New Mexico.
Well, yeah, but this happened this weekend. Or there's a good possibility that Trump, as a leader, is saying, get this together. I don't want anybody knowing about it. I don't want to advertise the hits.
Well, I would say this is...
Listen, we can only hope.
I would say this is not exactly a good time to not have John Bolton in the conversation. I would argue whatever John Bolton was saying all along, and for decades really, about Iran, has proved to be true and accurate, especially after, this hit.
Yeah. And I'm not a big Bolton fan. I don't dislike him, but I'm kind of just neutral on him. Let's put it this way. When I saw the meme this weekend that had Trump and Bolton talking, and Trump said in the meme, I mustache you to resign, I did have to laugh at that. I thought it was funny.
That was cute.
It was. Did you know that his mustache, John Bolton's mustache, actually has its own Social Security number? Just his mustache.
I would have thought you would have said zip code, but okay.
No. Social Security number.
Oh,
I find that to be fascinating.
Okay.
And if we have any liberals listening, that's fake news. It's an untruth. Just like, Denise, you would not believe the conservatives that don't read a post to the end.
Oh.
Do you know which one I'm talking about that I posted this weekend?
I don't think I do.
It was a post about a woman that was suing Samsung because she got her Samsung cell phone stuck in her lady parts. Lady parts that rhyme with Regina, Saskatchewan.
Okay.
A city in Canada.
Okay.
Now, I post this, and it's a very humorous story. But at the bottom of it, I said, yes, this is satire. You would not believe the number of people, like you've said so many times, they read the headline. They probably read the first 2 or 3 paragraphs of it and then started reacting and commenting, and they never read the bottom of it that said, hey, this is a complete satirical lie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Read the whole thing.
Never happens.
Read the Mueller investigation and read the whole thing, and you'll find out they had nothing, ever. Volume 2 is a joke. All right, let's not go to the Mueller investigation, no.
All right.
So what do you think? All right, let me ask you this. You think there needs to be military action on this against Iran? Could not agree with you more. What do you think should happen?
Well, whatever it is, I think it needs to look something like what Schwarzkopf did.
Boots on the ground?
Yeah, but that was really kind of a tank war. But
I get it. But look at how far we've come with technology now.
Sure. But I'm saying on the scale, but, in this particular situation, it's going to deal with several countries, as I just listed. Everything from Lebanon to Afghanistan to Syria. I mean, Israel. I mean, it's going to have a lot of countries involved here. So the coordination of this would be huge. It's not a response that we could do tomorrow by any stretch. Or we could go the real effective way out, but we would hurt a lot of innocent Iranians by virtually, doing something like a cyber operation on them that would really fundamentally shut down the country.
I would think that we're going to do that anyway. If we do anything...
Well, we have done that. We have done that already.
I'm talking, if we're going to do it to the point of turning that country dark.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking, looks like North Korea at night.
Well, we have
anything,
Senator Coons.
Anything that we're... Go ahead.
We have Senator Coons that, he actually came out today and he thought there needed to be a military response. I almost fell off my chair when I heard that. A Democrat.
Yeah, and you know what? I get what you're saying. He has no credibility, so he can say whatever he wants to make himself look big and good and righteous. But Coons is a joke.
Well, I don't think that he's not, but I was real surprised that he even came out with that. He didn't slam Trump. He didn't, he thought that, things were being very measured. They're going to kind of do a, let's confab about this. And I was really rather stunned. But anyway, we shall see where this goes. There's an awful lot of piece parts to it. And apparently now, after what has happened, Trump officially is not going to meet with Rouhani next week at the UN General Assembly or UN National Security Council or whatever the heck it is. General Assembly.
Shocking.
Yeah.
All right, let me see how much time we got. We got about 9 minutes. Where do you want to go?
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read off some numbers to you. We're going to head on over to immigration, shall we?
Sure.
The population of the United States is 325.7 million. The number of foreign-born individuals inside the United States is 44.5 million. That means 1 of every 7.3 people are foreign. We issue 1.1 million green cards a year. The estimated number of immigrants admitted in the last 35 years because of chain migration is 20 million. The estimated number of illegal aliens in the United States, we still can't get a handle on it, but it ranges somewhere between 11 and 30 million.
Hold on. Where are you getting these numbers from?
This actually is coming from Michelle Malkin's brand new book.
Okay.
Okay. And
want to credit the source.
Yes. The illegal aliens that Obama granted DACA protection to came to protection from deportation and provided work permits was 800,000. The estimated number of illegal visa overstays is at least 4.5 million and could be 6 million. The number of people smuggled across Mexico into the southern border each year is 800,000. the annual revenue from our southern border smuggling enterprise, in other words, what those people get paid to smuggle people through, is $4.2 billion. $4.2 billion. The total number of refugees settled in the United States since 1975 is 3 million. The total amount of humanitarian spending, the total amount, is $8 billion. The State Department contractors' earnings per refugee, so when our State Department pays contractors to take care of refugees that are being resettled, is $4,000 per refugee. The State Department's annual spending on refugee processing and resettlement, on top of that $4,000 per refugee, is $545 million. Government contracts and grant revenues just for the year of 2017 was $72 million. Remittances, in other words, money that leaves the United States from by illegals to Mexico, just to Mexico for the year of 2018, $34 billion. $34 billion a year leaves our system. The percentage of Guatemalans now living in the United States is 6.6%. The number of Hondurans living in the United States is 9.2%. The number of El Salvadorians now living in the United States is 22%.
22% of what?
El Salvadorans.
Okay, so no, help me understand those last three. Those percentages
The
are
percentage of our
of
population, the percentage of population here in the United States from Guatemala is 6%. The percentage of...
Wait a minute, something's not right about that. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on details.
But it's 6% of the total.
There's no way. Total of what?
Of foreigners in the United States.
Okay. All right, there we go. That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So of the foreigners living in the United States, 6.6% are from Guatemala, 9.2% are from Honduras, and 22% are from El Salvador.
And are these legal residents or illegal?
Illegals.
Okay.
The U.S. Census projection by 2060, the U.S. Census projection of the population change by 2060 will be 78.2 million people that will be foreign. That's scary.
And what is the overall estimated population of 2060?
Don't know that. She doesn't have that listed here.
All right, read that stat again.
The projection by the U.S. Census in 2060, which is 40 years from now, if our population, for instance, stays at 325 million, 78 million of those people will be foreign, from illegals.
Okay, and where's it at right now? Between 11 and 30?
Right.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I actually thought it was closer to 40.
Well, there's been, a lot of dispute. We kept hearing the 11 million number for a long time, but then when it was Yale and MIT came out with that other study, said it could be as high as 30 million.
Yeah. I actually do think it's closer to 40.
I do too.
All right, so it's going to double in 40 years.
More than double. Yes.
Yeah. Well, double based on what you and I actually think it is. Does she have a stat in there in the amount of money that the federal government, our tax dollars, are paying through entitlement programs to these illegals on an annual basis?
And not entitlements. I don't know that that's a measurable number because
because it's managed by the federal government.
Well, not only that, but entitlements can come from so many different places. Okay? So I don't know that it's a measurable number.
Take a stab. What do you think it is?
Well, I think it's probably, if I was to guess, I would say it's probably in the $50 billion range.
I think it's safe just to say we spend a pant load of our tax dollars on people that are illegally here, providing them with benefits that most of us that are paying for those things don't even get.
Well, you know, at some point I would say to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, what's going to be left of your country in 2030? Because if you look at the age group and the gender of the people that are coming from them, I mean, they're young age males, working type males, what's left in their country to keep them sustainable? I mean, we talk about a brain drain, but these countries have a labor drain. So what are you doing? You got these old people, you know, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Are they the only ones that are going to be left to have a job? And what kind of production could they possibly provide, and in what capacities?
Yep. Good question. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Drive Time Sit Rep. We're about out of time. Please go over to Denise's fantastic website, founderscode.com. Founderscode.com. You can sign up and have all of her work sent to you in beautifully written emails, so where you can click on them and read them at your own leisure. The beauty of it, she does all the hard work for you. She vets it. That way you can turn around and talk about it, and you know that you're discussing these topics with integrity, because Denise has already done all the work. Denise, we got to go home. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us next week for the Drive Time Sit Rep. Denise, take us home.
Thanks for being with us, and God bless America.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.